And a very pleasant good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I always say that, and I realize that I have no idea when people are watching this, so I have to cover all my bases. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to QCast Season 3, Episode 7. And I have a friend of the program here, a friend of the QCast, a gentleman that has been on the show before, a repeat guest, always excited. I have my good friend, Coach Elliot Steinmetz, the head men's basketball coach at Yeshiva University in New York. And Elliot, can you believe that we are here on opening day of the basketball season? I mean, if you're not excited today, I don't know what gets you excited. How are you doing?
Yeah, no, I'm super excited. We get started tomorrow night, but I know a lot of the teams and programs are getting going tonight, so it's going to be fun to start seeing those scores come in and everybody getting back in action. It's great that basketball's here.
We have Coach. He's there in the conference room of the law practice, Rosenberg and Steinmetz. And you're a busy man, Coach. You've got kind of two full-time jobs, as I always try to explain to people. How is that trying to balance? I mean, all of this stuff that you have going on.
Um, I'm very tired always. It's a lot, but it's you know what? It's two things that I love. Love coming to work every day, and I love going to practice every day and being with the guys, obviously in the gym. So it's a lot of nights with short sleep. It's a lot of early mornings, and can't complain. Can't complain. Thankfully, you get the chance to make the time for the things you love sometimes.
Absolutely, and I know how busy you are, and so I appreciate your time. And we had talked about doing this. This seems like great timing, being opening day. And we're gonna kind of keep this one pretty short and sweet today, but there's four general topics that I want to walk through with you. And I wanted to start though with the really exciting happening last night in Detroit, where Yeshiva alum Ryan Turell makes his professional debut for the Motor City Cruise. And I watched all of the first game, waiting for that moment, and I watched all the second game, and I had a good feeling that was. I mean, with all the chanting in the gym, the "We Want Ryan," um, what a big moment, really. Can you talk about outside the obvious of like a guy that played for you playing in the G League? Can you talk, Elliot, about kind of the bigger than basketball aspects of what happened last night? Just give us some perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I think the crowd kind of said it all. It was very cool. I texted actually Ryan's father in the middle of the first quarter last night, and we most of us didn't get to watch the first game because it was actually on Friday night, I
That's
believe.
right.
So it was Sabbath, so we didn't get to see that one. And I texted Ryan's dad in the middle of the first quarter, and I said, holy cow, there's so many yarmulkes in the stand, and that's great. The Detroit Jewish community really showed up and showed out, and they were loud. I'm not sure Ryan's ever had that feeling of sitting on the back of the bench,
Right.
having the crowd call his name to get in. I'm pretty sure he's always been the guy in the game when they're calling for somebody else to get in. But I think, and I do believe that will change pretty quickly when, as his role increases and as he starts to kind of prove himself, which I think will happen pretty fast. But yeah, just an exciting moment to see, honestly, a kid chasing his dreams stereotypically against all odds, though those are things that I've never believed in and never preached, which is I think I talk about often the joke that a kid's bar mitzvah, a Jewish boy's bar mitzvah, people like to say is the age where he realizes he has a better chance to own a sports team than play for one. And I put it on social media a couple weeks ago when Ryan got drafted, and I hate that joke. I've always hated that joke. I just think it's such a cop out for kids who want to chase something that's bigger than maybe people are willing to try to realize. So I give him a ton of credit. It's not an easy path to go down to put yourself out there. You have a ton of people that are criticizing you from every different possible angle. Everyone wants to tell you you're not good enough. Everyone wants to hate on it. Everyone wants to tell you it doesn't work from a religious perspective, and here's a kid who has the guts and the fortitude to kind of chase it and the work ethic to actually go and put himself in the position he's put himself in.
And it's a tough road because it's just such a competitive environment. When you look at his roster and the G League rosters, I mean, almost everybody else is from a major Division 1 or a mid-major. Many of them are all Americans at the Division 1 level. And so I think the great thing about it is it seems like Ryan really has a good perspective on how hard he's going to have to work to first get himself in the rotation, stay there, and then
Yeah.
kind of keep earning his way up. Do you get, I mean, I know you have that same sense that he understands that nothing at all is going to be handed to him in this journey.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, he knows it. He's got a lot of work to do, and he knows he has a lot of work to do. Here's the thing that people don't realize. Ryan obviously, and a lot of people know this, Ryan had opportunities to play at higher levels in college. He made a decision 4 or 5 years ago to come play at Yeshiva, which obviously we're forever going to be happy about. But what came with that was a part-time coach, a program that doesn't necessarily have the resources and the facilities that a Division 1 program has, let alone some of the higher, or major D3 programs, and the willingness and the need to really improve and get better on his own. So I obviously had a lot of MBA scouts and general managers and other executives reaching out over the last year or so to ask about Ryan. That's the thing I always want to tell them, as much as it's it's easy to say. It's so true. He put himself in this position. He didn't have 4 Division 1 coaches and a strength coach with him every single day, full time, working with him. He wasn't in a Division 1 weight room playing against Division 1 players in practice. He was every day improving himself by himself. And that meant off seasons. People probably don't know this. He worked out 3 times a day every off season. 3 times a day. He went early in the morning for private training. Afternoon he would lift. Evening he was playing with Division 1 and pro players. Every off season he was working to get better, and every off season, if you can watch it, and if you watch film from kind of day one when he got to Yeshiva, and then year 2, year 3, year 4, you see the changes, not just in the footwork and the moves, even in just the formation of his shot. You can see how he's changed the kind of the mechanics of his shot and improved it, and it's just everyone loves to turn around and give credit to to his coaches and his program, and we don't get any of it. He really gets all of it.
And it was funny that he got one shot attempt last night, and it was just a prototypical Ryan Turell shot that he probably makes 9 of 10 times. It was to your point about improving his game. He kind of spun around. He got a little turnaround fadeaway shot. I think he missed it just long. I thought for sure when it left his hand, it was good. He's made it like 1,000 times. But to your point about his game, he's got a lot in his arsenal. The one other question I wanted to ask, and then we'll move on. Maybe more of a statement and get your reaction. The thing I remember most about Ryan Turell, what stuck with me the most, and I watched a lot of his games, mostly on video stream, one game in person, is that after one of your losses last year, I can't remember which one it was. It was at home, and it was one of those that was like a gut punch loss. It was a difficult loss. It was like a home upset. And the moment the buzzer sounded, and I took a screenshot of this on my laptop here, he is signing. He's got 30 young kids around him, pushed up against right under the basket. He's signing autographs on that padding on the wall as these kids are all handing him stuff. And this was the loss where, like, the ball of bottom friends of mine, Shua and Ari and the guys are panicking, and we're getting on a podcast to talk about what's wrong with Yeshiva, why we're not boxing out, and all this stuff. And Ryan Turell is signing. I couldn't imagine how difficult that was at the time, because for him it was a tough loss. Then last night, his dad sent me photos of that long line of kids and young people getting his autograph. Just speak a little bit before we move on, kind of about his character and what he means to I guess to so many people.
His character is off the charts. He's a kid, and thankfully I've been lucky to coach a lot of kids like this. But he's unique, and to have that kind of ability, have everybody constantly wanting your attention and looking at you, and to somehow be the most humble guy in the room constantly is a very, very special thing. I got a phone call from a summer camp that he visited this past summer, and he spent a couple of days there running programming for some of the campers. And the director of the camp I don't know them at all. I think it's out west or Midwest somewhere. The director of the camp reached out unprompted to me, and he's like, I was so shocked how great a kid he is. He's just so humble. We expected to get this ego-filled kid that we were gonna, maybe pay a little money to spend some time with our guys, and he just was all about the kids, answered questions, hung out with them, and just goes over and above. And I think it's the same thing, last year after we lost to Hopkins in the tournament, we were all upset. And, I was particularly upset, obviously, not feeling like I had done the best job to my guys in a position to succeed. And I'm standing in the back of the synagogue on Friday night after we lost in the hotel, the makeshift synagogue that we had. And just kind of was staying to myself, had my head down a little bit. And I feel somebody put their arm around my shoulder, and I look up and it's Ryan. He's got a big smile on his face, and he's like, I know it sucks, but not tonight, coach. We're not going to be upset tonight. Tonight we're with the team. We're hanging out. We're going to have a good time. We're going to enjoy it. You can be upset another time, not on Sabbath, and not tonight. And just like to have the ability as like a 21, 22, whatever it is, year old kid to turn to a 41-year-old and like lift his spirits and
Right.
just be more mature. Told me everything I need to know about him that I already knew for the last 4 years.
So I encourage everyone to check out Motor City Cruise games. And again, Ryan Turell is pursuing his dream. He's got a lot of tough work in front of him, but he's a worker, and I know everyone respects the heck out of what he's going to do. Second topic here. I want to talk about your team. We were joking before we came on the air that I did no prep for this QCast. Usually I over prepare. I research things, and I can rattle off the top of my head every guy you lost and what their stats were. I know most of your freshman names. I know the returners. And so whoever would have thought that I'd become an expert in Yeshiva University men's basketball, but here we are, Coach Steinmetz. I don't want to go too deeply into this because you haven't played a game yet. And I think we need to let things play out tomorrow when you face St. Joe of Connecticut. But you have a totally new nucleus. You've got some guys back, but almost every guy that was a main guy has moved on to other things. We talked about one of them for a few minutes, and we know about Gabe, and we know about Ofek, and we could just go down the list of everyone that was on the floor last year. Most of them are gone. How has this been in practice season so far, putting together such a new group with so many freshmen who are in the middle of your rotation?
It's been awesome. It's been probably the most fun I've had in a long time. It's a very different experience than the last few years. The last few years were great. I hope we're experiencing that again in a couple of years from now. But I would liken the last couple of years to Joe Torre with the Yankees in the late 90s, where kind of show up, put them through some stuff and manage egos a little bit. But the teaching was done 4 years ago when we had those guys as freshmen and sophomores. We're back to that kind of baby stage where we have a lot of talent. I think we have some really good players, but they're learning and they're attentive and they're respectful, and they've just been a load of fun to be around. And I am as energetic and as excited as I've been to go to practice every single morning. Kind of looking forward to building and to building these guys into the same kind of winners that left us the last year. And I think we'll get there. And we definitely have some good leadership pieces back. And they were guys who were probably more so what you'd call role players. And they'll probably step into some bigger roles this year. But more importantly, they know what it takes, and they've kind of been there, and they've seen it, and they've seen the success, and they. A lot of kids come into a program or anything, a job that where a company is successful, and they just expect that success happens because it's been there. First of all, you don't have to look very far back. We have not always been successful, and second of all, we had a group of guys who worked extremely hard to put us in that position for success. And the most important thing our freshmen can learn this year is that you don't just show up and get it. And I think our seniors so far have done a good job in practices and in the first couple of scrimmages of showing them that and letting them know that.
In terms of, or I'll make a statement and get you to react to it. Every great coach that I've been part of at the Division III level and other levels for that matter, but mostly I'm in touch with coaches at this level. They are competitive people. They were competitive as athletes, and now they're competitive as coaches. It's just they've had to shift that into a different type of competitive. There's some chatter out there, especially after the end of last season. It was like, well, that's the end of Yeshiva. The Turell guy and the other guy, Gabe, and the other guys that were part of that little nucleus, that was Yeshiva. And when you look at your record, you had built it before Ryan Turell got to campus. Does that drive you at all? Kind of you've seen some of that out there. Does that drive you, the fact that people think that your program was about a couple of guys and that now you will be unheard of, or is that not a thing?
Not for me. I'm sure it does for a lot of people. It's not a thing for me at all. I've really never been the one who cares that much what other people think. You're right. We had success obviously before Ryan got there. We were certainly more successful when he got there. What drives me honestly is watching our guys work and practice and knowing the goals they want to accomplish. It was the same thing when I was coaching high school. It'll be the same thing, whether I'm coaching here or anywhere else in the future. It'll always be the same thing for me. It's about molding and teaching a group of guys who have goals and watching them be able to fulfill those goals. And when we lose a game like Hopkins or York a number of years ago, that first year we were in the tournament, or if I go back to my high school coaching days, I remember my third year coaching high school basketball, my team went, same year as the Patriots, actually, we went undefeated and lost in the championship. And I remember crying and being upset after the game because not because we lost, but because I had 5 senior starters on that team who had worked extremely hard to accomplish a goal, and I couldn't help them deliver it. And that's kind of what drives me. So everyone's got their expectations, whether they're high or low. I don't care about that. I care about the expectations of my guys and helping them try to reach them.
As far as defining success for the upcoming campaign, not sure that you would have this defined yet, but in case you don't know, your fans can be somewhat unreasonable at times, Coach. Like they can actually be sort of like, hey, is Yeshiva going to be ranked number 3 in the preseason this year? Let's just break it down, though, in terms of where your program is and where you are. How would you define a successful 22-23 season at this point?
Probably the same way I defined the 21-22 season. It's getting better every single day. I mean, really, and I know it sounds cliche, but that's what we focus on. We want 3 things every day. We want to get better every day. We want to try to win every day, whether it's a game, whether it's a practice, whether it's classroom, whether it's something in our social lives. We want to try to get a W every single time we're out there and have an opportunity to. And third, and probably most importantly, is represent our university, represent our families, represent our community in a positive way that is uplifting to people around us. I think if we do those 3 things every day, I don't really care what the results of games are at the end of the season. I mean, I'd like to win every single game we play, and I'm upset every time we lose. But those are generally our goals. From a macro perspective, it's the same thing I told Dave when he interviewed me my first year coaching, and we jumped out to a 9-3 start, and everybody was all excited, and he asked me what our goals are for the program. Our goals are always the same. Our goals are to try to win our conference, get into the NCAA tournament, and compete for a national championship. And I don't care who our players are that year. I don't care whether they're freshmen. I don't care if they're seniors. I don't care if they have big names or names that nobody knows. We're always going to be competing every game with that in mind.
Just a quick question about your opening game. You're not fooling around on the non-conference here. So you open against the number 13 ranked team in Division III, St. Joe of Connecticut. You go there. The game's at 3rd place.
Yep.
You're one of 3 teams of 400 plus in Division III. You're one of 3 that's playing 2 top 25 teams in the opening week. The other, I think it's like Lacrosse and Transylvania and Yeshiva. That's pretty hard to do, is play 2 right off the block there. Obviously they're really good and you're familiar with them. Just in general terms, what are your thoughts heading into your opener tomorrow?
You're right. They're really good. And, in terms of schedule, as you know, this is kind of what we've been trying to do for years is build a schedule like we did this year. Thankfully, a lot more people are answering the phones these days. So it's, we're trying to get people locked in for the next few years if we can. I'm very, I've done it from the day I've gotten here. I'm very big on playing the highest level we can. I mean, that's what our guys are here for. That's what they're here to be exposed to, and that's what they're here to experience and learn from. We're going to play a program tomorrow night in St. Joseph's that is senior heavy, extremely well coached. It's an opportunity for our freshmen, number one, to go out and compete against a really, really good team, and kind of see how their talent matches up, and number two, to really learn some lessons and see how they react, how we react and how the other team reacts. And then, of course, to, win or lose, be able to build film and be able to review it and go over mistakes and go over things that allow us to get better. But it goes back to the same goals. Tomorrow night, we're going to try to be better tomorrow night than we were this morning. We're going to try to get a win, and we're going to try to represent our university and our community and our families in the best way that we can. And if we do that, we're going to be successful, and we're going to try to do that all year. But this is exactly the kind of schedule I want to keep having every single year, no matter what age level our roster looks like.
And I'm glad that people are answering the phone. Now, don't be surprised once they start seeing your freshman class if they all of a sudden you start to get the voicemails going. So we'll see how that goes with scheduling. But what a schedule you have this year. Want to talk a little bit about this weekend. Don't want to get into the game versus Illinois Wesleyan because you have a game tomorrow, and obviously you need to focus on your game tomorrow, and then we can talk about that one in Bloomington. But the trip to Bloomington to participate in the Jack Sikma Invitational at Illinois Wesleyan Shirk Center. What are your thoughts on that? What are the guys' thoughts on that? What does this mean for your program as you head into what should be a really fun tournament weekend early in the season?
It's extremely exciting. It's a great opportunity for our guys, obviously, to travel early, and see some tremendously talented competition, some probably Division I looking size. But it's this is the kind of thing where a few years back we weren't able to get these games, get these trips, get these opportunities, and for us with recruiting and bringing in guys that were kind of promising a really good college basketball experience. What's better than going to the Shirk Center, to the Sikma, playing against a school like Illinois Wesleyan, university that's one of the existing like powerhouses of Division III for so many years. It's great. We were very grateful to Coach Rose last year for coming out to New York. Obviously, I know you were a huge part in setting that up. Obviously, and again this year for hosting us, and not just that, for going out of their way to accommodate us. We're coming in with a different kind of set of restrictions than most of the universities in terms of when we can play with the schedule of the Sabbath. And it was just never an issue. The school and Coach Rose were so willing to make it work, and to schedule times that worked for us in terms of playing and in terms of traveling, and we're grateful to get the opportunity to go and be a part of it. It'll be special.
And it was, I remember talking to Coach Rose. I've never been asked for like advice on the pairings of a Illinois Wesleyan tournament, except for this one. And it was funny when Ron kind of talked himself through how to make the tournament. He's like, well, we have to play them on opening night, right? Like if they're coming to our place, we have to play them. And so I said, yes, you do. And I know that everyone is really excited about it. It's really unique, and it should be a really fun weekend. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. My guy Poppers, I'm meeting him at 1 p.m. at the Shirk Center Friday at the Yeshiva practice. So couldn't be more excited to like these worlds coming together is like off the charts, pretty cool.
That's great.
So last topic, and this is really the one that precipitated the QCast. This is where we started talking about this. The other stuff we just threw in was like just for fun because that's what people want to talk about, probably. But Elliot, there's been this rash of anti-Semitic stuff out there, very publicly. With the Kyrie Irving thing, and before that it was Kanye West and other stuff, et cetera, et cetera. You do a great job of being very vocal about this stuff, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but one of the consistent themes that I always read from you on social media, Instagram, Twitter, is kind of the like, look, don't just speak out against this stuff because you need a PR bump. Don't just say something nice for PR reasons. Say something because you believe it, and take a stand and that kind of thing. Talk to me about what's going on in the world right now with all the anti-Semitism. Um, how, where do we go with this? What do we do? How can people like me and others help this? Like, just let's talk through that.
Yeah, it's a difficult time. There's no doubt. It's actually it's pretty scary. I think I've given it a lot of thought over obviously the last few weeks in general, and as much as you try to prepare yourself to speak on the topic, it's always better, I think, off the cuff, and it's not something you can really prepare yourself with words for, because it's such a deeply rooted issue and so historic. I think the scariest thing to me is this the whole concept of social media in general. There's so much information available, and it's information that is not controlled. So you have information that's available that may or may not be true. Most of it probably is not. And then you have people who are thirsty for information who don't understand it. And then on top of that, everybody speaks different languages. And I don't mean English, Spanish, Hebrew, and whatever else. I mean, people just don't understand and see things the same way. And then it becomes this kind of trash world of misused, misrepresented, straight up lies and information. And it gets filtered to people who don't understand it and don't know how to then turn around and portray it. And the dangerous part is when you have, and I'm very, very big on not being negative about the people who are spreading it. To me, the bigger message is trying to be positive to everybody else around. And that's kind of been, my message throughout is, the silence is complicity is a very big, phrase or hashtag, as you will, in this regard, because it's the people who say it very often are either uneducated or maybe not mentally all there, and it's the people who are around them who know better and then don't speak up that are dangerous. So the fact that you have somebody like Kanye or Kyrie making the comments that they made, which are baseless, and all you have to do, by the way, is Google some of the stuff that they're saying, and you'll see where it came from and what the origin is, and then you kind of understand the the lack of truth behind certain things that they believe and all that. But the scarier part is there are millions of followers behind them, who many of them are probably not educated in the matter, and they take for granted and take as true statements that their, so to speak, role models make. And then they defend it. And then that kind of carries its own weight on social media. And then whoever their followers are now doing the same thing. And now you're kind of building this whole extended web of hate and it's the same way, anti-Semitism and racism and all that stuff has always been in any country, not just here. It starts with a fake idea or a trope, as they call it, and it webs out to people who either don't understand it or don't know better, and it kind of filters down into the general population that's not necessarily educated on the matter, and they form opinions based on information that wasn't originally true. So what is there to do? It's a tough one. We're in a tough world with social media where it's very, very hard to control a fire like that. I think a big thing is to see support from people outside our world. We generally feel alone. I think as Jews, as I'm sure other groups that experience hate very often do. I always try to speak up whenever I can when there's racism and against any group. I try to make it my business to speak up and say something if I'm aware of it or if I can, because I want to feel like the opposite's going to happen when the time comes. But that's really there's not much else you can do. I mean, everyone likes to talk about the cancel culture, and you have people tweeting free Kyrie. We didn't cancel Kyrie; he canceled himself. People make choices, and they make choices what they want to put out there in terms of words. And yeah, there's free speech, but there's not free consequences. So, if you say something that's going to bother a group of people, and something that your organization or corporation, whether it's the NBA or the Nets, or if you work for a company and you do something that is do something or say something that's not within the characteristics that the company wants to portray, there are consequences to it, and you got to live with them. So I think that's kind of what's going on now. And yeah, I mean, it's a tough one. I don't know the answer. I think the answer would have been would have been pretty encouraging to see NBA players who are so quick to speak up when there's hate in other areas, or when there's another humanitarian issue. Brittany Griner, very, very important humanitarian issue. Everyone's screaming. Black Lives Matter after the George Floyd stuff, extremely important. We were all screaming. We were all at rallies. There were attacks in New York City and other areas against Asians. People are speaking up. All of a sudden it's Jews, and it's like just silence. It's just scary.
What did you think about the way that the NBA handled the whole thing? Like, I'm just curious for your take on how that transpired over a period of a couple of weeks there.
I don't know, because I just don't know the inner workings of what was going on, and how they were trying to handle it. I mean, it seems like they were trying to, get him to, come off of his statements and apologize in some way, and they kind of thought they were getting somewhere and didn't. I don't care so much about him and the punishments. Like, it's just not relevant. Like, he could believe what he wants. It's thank God we're in America and everyone has the freedom to believe that whatever they want to believe, and that's fine. To me, it's the silence around it. It's that it took some of the you still don't hear from a lot of them, but it took the superstars so much time to say anything, and most of them are so guarded in their comments, because I don't know what they're afraid of. You have NFL players who initially are backing them up, and then realizing after they actually, I was involved in a back and forth with, I'm not going to say the name, but with a certain wide receiver in the NFL, and a couple of his college teammates who he just was, and there's no hate there. He was not in any way trying to give off anti-Semitism or hate. He was generally and genuinely questioning what was so wrong, and in doing so, he was going into information that he, again, same idea, didn't understand, and was putting out more anti-Semitic tropes without even realizing it. And it was so obvious. And the conversation was basically him tweeting, and like 25 people, myself included, saying, just stop and ask somebody a question. Just stop. You don't know what you're doing. Just stop. Like, not even in a mean way. Just stop and ask a question. And finally, he had a old college teammate who responded and said, "Hey, it's whoever, we played together. I can, if you want, I can call you." And he said, "Call me." And a few minutes later, he realized, and he's apologizing. And it's just, that's the scary part. How many people read what he initially said and were like, "Oh, right on," his hundreds of thousands of followers, and they don't see the rest, and nobody else is loud enough to kind of combat it.
I'm just curious, as we start to wrap up, there is one question I'd like to ask you in terms of, like, you have a platform within the Division III basketball community. You have many platforms, but one of them is as the head coach of a Division III school. And there'll be some people tuning into this, and I'm curious what you would say to the student athletes out there, the men and women 18 to 22, 23 years old. They're at that great age where they're still kind of forming a lot of opinions about who they want to be and what they want to do. I think some other people, older people, they're going to think what they're going to think, and it's a little harder. But to that community that you're such a part of, the student athlete community in Division III, people that can change the world.
Yep.
Like, you've got talented people who can go out and change the world. What would you say to that group about this topic and the role that they can play to make it better?
Yeah, I think it's probably a couple of things. The first one, most important one, is read. Read a lot. Try to get real information and enough information. And I don't mean read social media and Twitter posts and watch Instagram stories and reels. Read books. Learn history in general. And I don't mean this from a standpoint of Judaism or anti-Semitism. I mean from the standpoint of being part of the world and being able to interact with people from other cultures, because college is great. You're meeting a ton of people from probably a ton of different backgrounds, but it's not the real world. And eventually you get out into the real world and you're gonna have to interact with a lot of people on a lot of different levels. That's not just being a teenager or a young person and having the ability to make mistakes. You're gonna have to really be able to interact with people and not necessarily understand cultures, but be respectful of cultures and be tolerant of cultures that are different. And the first way to do that is to kind of understand where they come from and what the background is. And that goes for kind of all religions, cultures, races, genders, anything you want, any class you wanna throw there. It's important to understand as best you can. And when you don't understand, don't be afraid to ask questions. It's the biggest form of respect when somebody asks a question about something that we do that's different. The second thing would be, and I've said this before on a number of platforms, athletes are role models. They always are, they always will be. It doesn't matter if it's professional athletes, college athletes, D1, D2, D3, high school, elementary school. Athletes are generally the most popular kids. They're for whatever reason more confident and more social, and that's just the way of the world. I don't think it's great. I don't think athletes should be role models. There are a lot better options out there than professional athletes these days to be role models, but they are. And as athletes in Division III who are some going to go on and play professionally in different sports, but many are going to go on and be successful professionally in other fields. You're going to be a leader. You're always going to be a leader because you have that confidence and you have that background. And I remember one of my first job interviews after law school. I went into the interview, and it was circled on my resume that I had played Division III basketball. And I remember asking the interviewer, who ended up being my boss, why. And he said he had played basketball in college many years before me against Pistol Pete Maravich. That's how long ago. He just has always felt over his career that former athletes who were part of a team had great leadership ability, great ability to work as a team and to deal with adversity. So it was a plus for him that somebody was an athlete, and he's not wrong. All these kids who are playing Division III are going to be leaders in whatever fields they're in, and they're going, like you said, they're going to have opportunities to change the world. And the more they read and the more information they have, the more positive impact they're going to have on the world. And not everyone's going to agree with it. I won't always agree with it, but if it's educated and it's done the right way and done it with positivity, then I don't care if I agree with it or not. You're allowed to have a different opinion on things, but it has to be the right way and done from a position of positive leadership. So
Yeah, it would encourage all the student athletes that are watching that to heed that. I mean, that's tremendous advice, and it's not very tough, right? Is number one, like, educate yourself, read things, educate yourself, and number two is realize that you are a role model. And we don't have to look any further than some of the examples we talked about earlier with Ryan Turell, and just seeing kids at the Max Stern 5 seconds after the buzzer sounds, like what do? They go find their role model and they want to talk to them. They want to get an autograph. That actually happens in every Division III gym. So these little kids that are 4, 5, 6 years old, they don't know what Division III is. They don't know what Division II is or Division I. They just know that their parents take them to a game and there's someone that they really look up to on the floor, and they want to be like that person. So I think Division III student athletes understanding that they're role models and can help with some of these topics that we're talking about. Coach, I'm really looking forward to seeing you. It's very surreal. It was surreal to me when I walked in to the Max Stern Athletic Complex. That was a surreal moment. And I think it'll even be more so when you and your team walk into the Shirk Center. I think that's going to be like a everything hitting me moment. I'm looking forward to seeing you there. We don't have a 70% capacity rule at the Shirk Center. I mean, I want to see what a full gym looks like at your place, coach, because that's 70%. That was pretty crowded, wouldn't you say?
That was pretty crowded. Yeah, I don't know if they were counting maybe the court space as part of the 70%.
I got to ask you one final question before I give you the last word. I remember we pulled up to the Max Stern that night, and there was 600 people in a line. One of the more intimidating things I've ever seen outside of a Division III gym is like, holy crap. Someone in the bus said, all week we've been practicing here, and they had us parked back there, and tonight we're parking out front. I mean, was there any intentionality, coach, to where that bus parked for the Illinois Wesleyan Titan to make sure that our guys saw that line? I got to ask you that.
I only can hope that our athletic department was smart enough to do that. I wish I knew. I do not even get involved in scheduling for the most part, so I have no idea. But I would love to know that our athletic department had enough gamesmanship to pull that off.
And I tell you what, I mean, I've
Worked
never
out
seen.
great too.
Well, that's true, but I've never seen such an intimidating, like, holy crap, there's 600 people waiting to go to this game. So I promised myself that someday I'd ask you that question. Coach, in all seriousness, you've been awesome to me. This whole thing has been, between our universities, has been really, really cool, and I think good in many, many ways. And I'd like to just ask you whatever final thoughts you have before we close up the QCast here.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thoughts that I would usually end with, we were able to actually cover during the discussion. But I do think it, and I don't like to necessarily. I know you don't love having your horn tooted too much, but when you reached out to me last year or 2 years ago with the idea of putting these games together, or maybe it was 3 years ago already. I lose track with COVID, but the idea of putting this game together, in my mind, I really just thought it was, another opportunity to play a really, really good top 25 opponent, find somebody who's willing to play, get a good game. I could not have possibly envisioned the outside of basketball. We lost that game and we got beat pretty good. And I still somehow, and I don't smile when we win, and I definitely don't smile when we lose. And I went home with a smile on my face because one person can change the world. And I think when you reached out to me with that text, it's a ripple effect, and it starts slow. But you definitely have created a tidal wave of change in a big way that's bigger than basketball. And I hope people recognize it and give you credit for it.
I appreciate that, and I thank you. And people always ask me about the relationship I've developed with Yeshiva and men's basketball. And at the end of the day, I just say I've met a bunch of good people that I like. What else do you want me to say, right? Like, I could start listing a bunch of people who have become like lifelong friends of mine. Akiva Poppers. We got a 50-year-old guy about to be 51 from Chicago, and an
Yep.
Orthodox Jewish kid who's 22 years old. He's a buddy of mine. What Brad Turell, he's a friend of mine. Ari
Yep.
Lamb, all those guys, Shua. So that's as simple as I could say, is like, we've had a good time getting to know each other, good people. And Coach, I look forward to seeing you at the Shirk Center Friday, 1 p.m. Yeshiva
Got it.
practice. Let's do this, okay?
Absolutely. I'm excited. Looking forward.
That's Elliot Steinmetz, head men's basketball coach at Yeshiva University. They take on St. Joe of Connecticut tomorrow in their opener, number 13 in the country. Good luck, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you.